The vault is back and it feels so good. I'm watching you guys in the live chat saying hello to me and also to each other. And it's just, it's the way it should be. We all need to be back together again. The vacation for the holiday break was awesome, but it's also awesome to be back with you guys. I am Sarah Ellison. Bobby Trossett, my co-host, is back in the United States. If you follow him on Instagram, you probably already know that. But he does have his aunt's 60th birthday celebration to attend to. So he will be back tomorrow. But the vault officially has returned. The Voltrons, I'm seeing all of you. Yes, we are all back. I can't believe it's already going off in the live chat. So at the back end of the show, I'll talk a little bit about what I did during the break. I might do it more with Bobby tomorrow. We might do a little tag team talking about our vacations. We want to hear from you guys to hear how your 4th was and what it's been like over the last 10 days. 10 days. But before I do that on the back end, I do want to give you a rundown of what we will be talking about today. So I'm going to try to catch up on like some of the major news items that went down while Bobby and I were away. Like there were lots of little things here and there, but there were some major news items, including trades that went down in the AFC North that will for sure affect the Ravens and the competition in the division. I'm going to talk about the suspension decision that came for Justin Tucker, my reaction to that, and the fact that he's not going to try to appeal any of it. Diontae Johnson gave his side of the story of being suspended, and spoiler alert, it did not make him look better. And then finally, and I want to dig into this one a little bit more, the NFL, an independent arbitrator, found that the NFL indeed encouraged collusion among the NFL 32 teams right during the time that Lamar Jackson was negotiating his first long-term contract coming out of his rookie deal. So I kind of want to go through all of that. Before I do, I just want to give a shout out to a new member, Jonathan Williams, Ravens Libra, welcoming us back. Thank you. What a generous super chat here. Says he hopes we enjoyed our vacay away. Back to business now. Go Ravens. Absolutely. Tisha Brown, a new member. What other welcoming back do we have? DHBSR in the house. Douglas H. Brown Sr. in the house. Welcome back. We missed you. Big E3 letting us know this is Rave Kingdom. No more name changes, promise. Park Heights Prophet, what's up, buddy? He says the vault is back and football is right around the corner. I'm calling my shot now. 20-0. See you in Santa Clara. And we'll get to some of these other super chats in a minute. I just want to hit the ones that were welcoming us all back. So where should we start? I'd say we start with the trade that went down recently inside the division, knowing that it will impact the Ravens. What trade am I talking about? Oh, it's the one between the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. Let's get into this because the Steelers are making moves. They're making moves. I'll go through all of them, but the question at the end will be, do these moves make a real difference in the division? Do these moves make the Steelers a more legitimate threat to unseating the Ravens from their throne as the 2-time AFC North champion? So we know from Adam Schefter that the Dolphins traded 3-time All-Pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they also gave up tight end Jonnu Smith, which I think is actually a pretty big part of the deal, and a 2027 7th-round pick for, out of nowhere it seems like, safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then a 2027 5th-round pick. This part of this trade, Ramsey is actually getting a $1.5 million raise. So his compensation for 2025 is now $26.6 million. So Schefter wraps that up by saying the Steelers get their man and Ramsey gets another raise. So automatically, right after that trade went down, knowing the Dolphins didn't have a tight end, everybody knew the Dolphins were going to have to make a move. Jonnu Smith, their leading tight end, I think he might have even led maybe number 2 in receiving yards last year for the Dolphins. And so immediately I noticed on Twitter, people like, oh, could the Dolphins be calling the Ravens for, say, Mark Andrews? Well, about less than a day later, Tom Pelissero reports, surprise, the Dolphins are finalizing a trade with the Giants for former Pro Bowl tight end Darren Waller, who is coming out of retirement to play for Miami. So there was quite a twist that they're going from a Pro Bowl tight end in Jonnu Smith to trading for a guy that didn't even play football last year, had decided he was retired, didn't have it in him anymore, didn't want to play anymore, but he comes back to replace Jonnu Smith. I saw the jokes. Who didn't see the jokes? Maybe there's some truth to it, though. Cole Jackson represents what many people joked about. King Henry tossed that man, meaning Minkah Fitzpatrick, right out the division with the screen grab that we now know is just famous. Famous. Derrick Henry stiff-arming and throwing Minkah Fitzpatrick to the side like a rag doll. So, what's the reaction to all this? Well, Fox Sports spoke to an anonymous, they're always anonymous, GM, who says that this trade, even though they're big names, especially in their heyday, he says, well, since they're kind of on the back end of their careers, this anonymous GM says, well, it seems that both teams are just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. So that's one side, that's one opinion of like, listen, both of these teams are going nowhere. Both these teams are going to be going down when it comes to playoff time. And they're just trading names of guys who are past their prime. Peter Schrager, now at ESPN, takes a different view, especially for the Steelers. And he goes with this. He says, I've been laughed at on TV and off for this take. But you don't go acquire Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and cornerback Darius Slay if you don't have serious Super Bowl aspirations. He goes on to say these are all in moves. Whether they are or not, Pittsburgh thinks they're close. Okay, so I think there might be some truth to what Peter's saying here. This is not a football team that are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, accepting their destiny as what, the third best team in the AFC North. The fact that they're paying $26 million for Jalen Ramsey, though, here's the problem. The Ravens and Eric DeCosta get criticized often for going out and getting players past their prime. Now, getting players past their prime, depending on the rest of your roster, can be a good thing, okay? The Ravens are doing it with Kyle Van Noy. But they also have a fifth-year player and starter in Odafe Owe. They just used a second-round pick on Mike Green, who has super high expectations. And so you kind of like getting these older veterans who are past their prime. Maybe you can squeeze out some more juice in their final years. But here's the thing. When Eric DeCosta does that, he usually does it for a bargain deal. Not all the time, but the vast majority of the time. And he's bringing in these veterans as a compliment and a mentor on the roster. Here, the Steelers are going out and getting somebody like Jalen Ramsey, who's past his prime and certainly has, plenty of ball still to play. But at $26 million, that's an overpay. Aaron Rodgers, what has he done? What has he done to make you think the Steelers really have Super Bowl chances? Darius Slay has been great with the Eagles. Now, again, if Darius Slay was just being added to an overall secondary that was already set with younger guys and maybe veterans on their second contracts, and it's like, ooh, beautiful move. But it's just so many guys that how can you rely on all of them to somehow drink from the fountain of youth? And by the way, Minka Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey exchanging again. Minka was like less money and probably just as good. So listen, I never like to underestimate anybody in the AFC North, including the Cleveland Browns, because these teams all know each other. They play each other well. But does the Steelers going out, to me, what this screams is the Steelers are desperate. They are doing business more like the Browns rather than the Steelers of old that everybody respected. And perhaps it's because they just don't have a franchise quarterback. You start to do desperate things, and they haven't had a franchise quarterback in a long time. And it's been asked. It's been asked all over social media. Who has the best secondary in the NFL? I want to get your opinions on this. Here's a graphic asking if it's the Broncos, Ravens, or Steelers. Well, with this, where the Steelers are at now, Jalen Ramsey again past his prime, but still a solid corner. He's going to be playing a bit more safety. He went from like 8 snaps in 2023 in either the safety or slot position to over 100 in 2024. So he's like moving that way, but you have him as a corner. Joey Porter, up-and-comer young guy, think he's great. Darius Slay, again, on the back nine of his career. Who's at that safety position? And then Deshaun Elliott. To me, you can't put them in the top 3. I just can't do it. You got Joey Porter as the young guy up and coming, and Deshaun Elliott, who's good. But the Ravens let him walk. He's not Kyle Hamilton. Ravens, meanwhile, with Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins in his second year, Jair Alexander, if he still stays healthy, watch out, Kyle Hamilton in all-pro safety, and then a first-rounder in Malachi Starks. Now, to me, just because of the unknown, I think I might still have to, at this moment in time, give a hat tip to the Broncos with Patrick Surtain, Riley Ross, Jody Barron, how do you say the safety's name? Talanoa Hafanga, sorry, and Brandon Jones. Now they've got rookies in there too, but with the way the Ravens played last year in the secondary and the fact that it took a minute to come together. Remember, I think the Ravens ended 30th, 31st in the NFL in passing yards given up. It obviously got way better in the second half of the season, but a big part of that change, Darius Washington, is going to be sitting on the sideline nursing his Achilles tendon injury. And so I'm okay with maybe giving the Broncos a hat tip, but the Ravens are right there. On the right of this graphic, I've got Warren Sharp's kind of voting and statistics. They've got Broncos as number 1 and the Ravens at number 5. And I think he has them at number 5 because of potential. I mean, look at on paper, Ravens secondary is phenomenal. But because there's new pieces with Jair Alexander and Malachi Starks, you might say, okay, it's fair to put him number 5 for now. But it would not surprise me if they get chemistry, they get things going. If Malachi Starks, I think they could perhaps surpass the Broncos. But I think it's fine for now, given where they were coming from last year and the 2 new pieces and really the unknown of how healthy Jair Alexander can be, although you have health issues everywhere. I don't mind putting the Ravens second just for now. Just for now. But I could see them taking over that spot. Let's get to a couple more super chats before we move on to other topics. While I was out of town, Bobby and I were out of town. Here we go. John R. says, unfortunately, my dad passed. Oh, John, sorry to hear that. Thanks, everyone, for your prayers. John, yes, you are in my prayers. I hope that you are able to find peace and comfort as you think back to your time with your dad. Much love and prayers to you and your family. Sod Blitz. No Sarah in Discord kills me. It's like the live chat, but it never stops. Where can I send stuff to you that you will see? Emails are way too slow. Emails are too slow. I just feel like I'm saturated with all the places like You probably have a better chance of getting my attention on Twitter in the off season. Although during the season, there's so many comments I could miss it. I don't know. I could consider Discord. I just feel like there's so many different social media places I'm already going to. So sorry, Sod. I'll try harder. John R sends another donation, super sticker at $3.99. Sod blitz again, incremental growth for Pittsburgh, a little better offense, a little worse defense. I could see that. I just Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Is Aaron Rodgers gonna be enough? Because the quarterback position is so important, and also they still got stuff going on with TJ Watt that they're trying to figure out with contracts. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, you just don't even know who the other safety is going to be at this point. But it's the Steelers. They always play them, so I'm not going to look past them. But these moves just don't have me scared. Let's see. Park Heights Prophet is back. He said, I'm excited to read this one. He's always got funny comments here. Pittsburgh is like a brand new trash can. It looks fresh and clean, but it's still a place for trash and still stinks. They will be cheeks this year. I look forward to sweeping them by a combined 40 points. Woo! He didn't just say sweep them, but by a combined 40 points and call them a trash can. There's nobody like you, PHP. There is nobody like you. Okay. More news that we have. Listen, we got to catch up onto this news together. We got to react together, and I want and see how everybody feels. So more news while we were away. You definitely saw this one if you were paying attention to the news. The NFL finally finished their internal investigation into Justin Tucker and the 16 massage therapists who accused him of sexual misconduct. His case, their accusations cannot go to the criminal court justice system, nor can it go to the civil court because it has passed the statute of limitations. So the best place that we were going to get information on this was going to be the NFL investigation. Now, we didn't get much more details, but the fact that this suspension is the first 10 weeks of the regular season says that he's done enough to certainly violate the NFL's personal conduct policy. And it was 10 weeks worth. Not 2 weeks, not 4 weeks, not 6, 8, 9, but 10. So there's obviously something that they found there that made them feel like he should be taken out for more than half of the season. Now, the suspension doesn't take effect until August 26th, which means Tucker could theoretically still try out for a team if he got such an invitation during training camp. So if he were to try out and he were to be signed, he could still go to training camp, but then he would then have to leave the premises and not be on campus starting on that roster cut down day, August 26th. When will he be eligible to return again if a team were to sign him? Not until November 11th. So what was Justin Tucker's reaction? Well, he didn't say anything himself, didn't tweet about it like he did. He put out a statement defending himself when the allegations first came out from the Baltimore Banner and denied any wrongdoing. And felt like he was being mischaracterized. However, while Justin Tucker himself didn't respond, his attorney, or his agent, Rob Roche, his agent, did react, and Jeff Zrebiec wrote verbatim what that statement was. Again, Justin Tucker's agent says, quote, "We are disappointed with the NFL's decision. Justin has always strived to carry himself in a way that would make his family and community proud. He stands by his previous statements." Those statements, obviously, as I said, denying any wrongdoing. Roche goes on to say, "In order to put this difficult episode behind him and get back on the field as soon as possible, we have advised Justin to accept this resolution and close this matter. The people who know Justin best know his character and understand that while he remains fully committed to excellence as a football player, he is deeply dedicated to his most important lifetime roles as a father, husband, and friend, close quote. I will say this. Lots of times when players are suspended by the NFL, they will appeal it to an independent arbitrator. And lots of those appeals work out in favor of the player. Lots of times their suspensions will be reduced. If I'm not mistaken, did Watson get a reduction? I can't remember. But that oftentimes happens. Here's the problem, though. Why wouldn't Justin Tucker appeal? It seems to me that an NFL arbitrator would, do a write-up, put together all the evidence, say whether or not he thinks that, I'll just say this, a lot more details would be cited in a report such as that. So maybe this is just Justin Tucker and his agent being like, listen, let's just cut our losses. This is never going to look good. More details come out. We're just going to string it along. Just take the suspension and perhaps maybe a team will want you. So my feeling is that nobody will sign Justin Tucker before the season starts. However, I think there could be a decent chance that he could be back in the league again, perhaps as soon as late November or early December. Because we know that this league is a bottom line league. People want to win. And if there is a contending team in November that could potentially have an injury, and the kicker is going to put them over the top or sink them, then certainly an NFL owner and GM could say to themselves, you know what? He's served his time. He served what he's supposed to do. And we think it's time that we bring him back in, and we need help at the kicking position. So we will see. In the case of Ray Rice, he never saw the NFL field again. In the case of Deshaun Watson, in the midst of all of his allegations, which did go to civil court, and there was more information there, he did return to the field, and he got that, fully guaranteed contract, which I'm actually going to talk about later in this episode. And so could be Tucker just doesn't want to string it out anymore, and still feels like you said, he still feels he's innocent and did no wrongdoing, but they are moving on. So this could be the last we hear of Justin Tucker until potentially November. Anyway, that's my guess, is that he would not be signed in training camp, but we'll see what happens in November. One more piece of news that happened, it was really just as we were leaving town. I think we did our last show, and then later that day, Diontae Johnson gave his side of what went down when he refused to go into the Ravens game in December. And, it's always like you hear stories and you're like, well, there's two sides to a story. Diontae Johnson right now doesn't look very good based off the side of the story we're hearing from the Ravens and news reports. But maybe once we hear his side, things will look better. And I can tell you, for me, when he went on this podcast, and this news comes out via Steeler Nation, want to make sure I give them their love. And the Suits podcast, we hear his story, and I don't think his own story does him any favors. You tell me.
I wasn't getting into no run plays, no passing plays, no nothing.
Wasn't it cold? You said?
Yeah, it was cold. So I'm on the sideline, just standing there, just going to the heater back and forth, going into the fourth or whatever. They're like, Tay, we need you. I'm like, nah, I don't think it's to me, I don't think it's a good idea for me, because I was thinking about my legs. I don't want to go out there and put bad stuff on film.
Right.
It's not like I didn't want to go in the game, but you got to think leading up to this point, I done been through so much, and I told him I wasn't going in. I was like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not going to go in. So I just sat on the bench, and then that's when they suspended me.
Oof. So just to understand, he said he was cold. This is the NFL, sir. This is the AFC North, which you've played in. It was 41 degrees that day during the game. I didn't want to put any more bad film on tape. Which was going to be worse for you? First of all, why did you have to put, there are exercise bicycles and other tools to keep warm. You could say, hey, got you, coach. Can you give me a quick series? Let me go get my legs warm. I don't know why you weren't doing it anyway, but let me go get my legs warm. There's heaters out there. You want an opportunity to get the ball. It was too cold? Are we NFL professionals or not? Like, my legs are already ice cold in 41-degree weather, and I didn't want to go out there and put bad stuff on film. And then this is the line that also kills me. It's not like I didn't want to go into the game. Well, who is stopping you? I think it's pretty clear that you didn't want to go into the game. It's not like I didn't want to go into the game, but leading up to this point, I had been through so much. What did you have been through? You got signed by a team that was going to the playoffs. You're playing for a quarterback who is squarely in the conversation for another MVP year after already having 2 MVPs. And you just said to the whole NFL, I don't want to go in because I'm cold over potentially bad film. Well, why don't you make sure your film is good? Get on the bike and warm up. That's bananas to me. Yeah, this did not help him. And then later I saw, people were talking about it on Twitter, and he was like, why don't you guys drop it? And it's like, if you wanted to drop it, you probably shouldn't have spoken about it more. So, yeah, there's that. And so now he's in Cleveland, right? Is he with Cleveland? My vacation brain has made me forget about where it's Cleveland, right? Johnson. Yeah, Browns. Okay, I remember correctly. I doubted myself there because I've been away from the news for a second, but that is definitely where he is. So now he's with the Cleveland Browns, and they can decide whether or not he's going to make the roster. Cleveland is going to be cold. Just a heads up. Just a heads up. All right, let me get to one more super chat before we change gears on the Lamar Jackson stuff that came out. Douglas H. Brown Sr. is back. Thank you, Douglas. He says, I love Justin, but he got what he deserved. Glad the Ravens were ahead of it. You know what's interesting is whatever. It is what it is. We'll check back in November or later to see if he gets a job. All right, let's see here. Now there was this news right here while we were out. Okay, let's revisit this. I know that we're, a week or more removed from this, but this is actually massive news. And I know a lot of times fans don't get as much into the weeds on contracts because at the end of the day, you just want to see guys perform. Like, figured out teams, figured out players, just get on the field and you guys figure out the money. But the details that we got here about going inside Lamar Jackson's contract, I think is significant. And it also, okay, let's just put it like this to kind of start out. The NFLPA filed a grievance against the NFL alleging that they had committed collusion with fully guaranteed and even guaranteed in general money in contracts. Okay. And so they take these accusations to an independent arbitrator. And the arbitrator, his name is Christopher Droney. And this arbitrator does a deep dive into these accusations. And he puts together a 61-page document summarizing all of his research. He did witness testimony with 8 different owners, plus 3 quarterbacks. There was Lamar Jackson, there was Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray, because they were all three players coming after the Deshaun Watson deal. So what they're basically saying is that, okay, after Deshaun Watson gets his massive fully guaranteed deal of 5 years, $230 million, fully guaranteed, this was back in March of 2022, that they allege that the NFL colluded to make sure no other quarterback could get, or any player could get, that fully guaranteed money, and really any money after that. And so Pablo Torre got a hold of this 61-page document of this arbitrator hearing both sides from the NFL and the NFLPA, and then all the interviews that they did. Steve Bisciotti was interviewed, Lamar Jackson was interviewed, Eric DeCosta was interviewed, and a host of other NFL executives and people. So a lot of information came out on this. I spent this morning, I won't say I read all 61 pages, but I probably read 40, 45 pages and skimmed the other, but I read word for word, probably 40 to 45. Here is one for sure undisputed fact. This independent arbitrator, Christopher Droney, for sure caught the NFL encouraging collusion. Without a doubt. And I think it's hard to see otherwise. So I just wanted to pull up a couple of slides for the 61-page report. Now, there's the overall NFL part of collusion, and then there's the Lamar Jackson part. Let me get to the overall part first. After that Deshaun Watson deal, there was an NFL owners meeting in 2023. And they were preparing slides. The NFL executives were preparing slides to present to NFL owners. Okay. They send it to Roger Goodell, the commissioner, and they're talking specifically about how do we address guaranteed money. So they talk about it for a while, and Roger Goodell gives the approval, okay, on this presentation. This part of the presentation of, like, they called systems updates, was about 20 minutes long in this meeting. But here's what it said on slide 17 that NFL executives, the management council, presented to owners. They're talking about how guaranteed money could really hurt teams. And it says, if guarantees continue to grow, because they're seeing a big growth in guaranteed money, if guarantees continue to grow in both amount and number of players, then there's a risk that they become the norm in contracts regardless of player quality. That not only has the potential to hinder roster management, but set a market standard that will be difficult to walk back. Of course, all clubs must make their own decisions, but continuing these trends can handcuff a club in the future. So yes, at first they were presenting a bunch of facts about guaranteed money going up. That's what these NFL executives did. But then they went beyond that and talked about how it would hurt clubs. They have the disclaimer. Of course, all clubs must make their own decision. But these trends, just know, could handcuff you as a club in the future. That is for sure encouraging collusion. This Christopher Droney, the independent arbitrator. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. There we go. There it is. He's like, these statements went beyond merely informing teams about the trend of increasing bonuses and guarantees at the beginning of 2022, and went beyond merely educating teams about how bonuses and guarantees can affect individual team cap space in the future. Instead, the language of the presentation effectively expressed an opinion about the increases that the league was seeing. It communicated the league's concerns that increasingly large guarantees and bonuses would substantially raise player compensation, contribute to an expectation that players other than those in the top tier deserved guarantees, and ultimately give the players a greater share of team and league revenue than was bargained in the CBA. The slides did indicate that the clubs must still make their own decisions, and there is no evidence that the presenters explicitly asked the clubs to join together in an agreement to restrict the growth of guaranteed salaries and bonuses. However, the NFL MC Management Council, their message was not purely educational and informational as the NFL contends. It unmistakably encouraged the owners to reduce the trend of increasing player guarantees. Okay? So for sure, NFL caught. There they are, encouraging all owners to reduce player guarantees, which, yes, is encouraging collusion. Now, the NFL arbitrator goes on and says, but can you prove that the NFL owners actually acted upon that encouragement? The NFL arbitrator says, no, we don't have sufficient evidence to say that the 32 teams went out and acted upon that. And there's lots of details about trends of salary, of guaranteed money. I think it went down after this meeting in terms of percentage, but overall went up. And there's just lots of different data points that it's like, some could argue that, especially with a certain amount of teams, they kept giving out guaranteed money. Like over half of the NFL teams continued to give out more guaranteed money, like it increased. The other half kind of didn't, but he looked at their salary caps and they really didn't have the money to do it. So the arbitrator just didn't feel like there was evidence that the NFL owners actually acted upon this encouragement from the NFL. But boy, oh boy, do they encourage it. And so that's what he kind of concludes there. Now, that's the overall kind of umbrella to it. But what about the NFL? What about Lamar Jackson's part of it? Like, we got a crazy amount of details that we never would have had otherwise if it weren't for this grievance and this 61-page document. So, first of all, we got to remember to go back. Remember, in 2022 is when Deshaun Watson got his fully guaranteed contract. That's what triggered everything. It just so happened to coincide with the Ravens and Lamar negotiating his contract. And so Eric DeCosta, according to this document, sent out a couple of different offers to Lamar. And so finally, heading into his 5th year deal on his rookie contract, he informs Eric DeCosta, quote, "I'm going to continue to request a fully guaranteed contract. I understand that you all don't, and that's fine." That's what he texted him in 2022. So then Lamar goes on and plays on his 5th year deal. Has a great year again. So after that, in the 2023 offseason, they start negotiating again. And Lamar renewed his request for a fully guaranteed contract. So what Eric decided to do was like, okay, I kind of want to try to meet Lamar halfway. And so he sends out 2 different offers with essentially fully guaranteed contracts, but they were for 3 years. Lamar rejected those because he wanted it to be a longer-term, fully guaranteed contract. So it goes on to say that after they go back through this here and there, Lamar goes ahead and requests a trade first privately. I think this was like March 2nd. Remember, at the next owners meetings, he made it public that he had requested a trade. So before we all knew about the requested trade, the private conversations are that he asked for it. And so Eric DeCosta says, okay, well, give me a list of teams that you would request a trade from. But he never gets that list from Lamar. And that's when it says that Mr. Jackson said that the microphone on his phone was not working, making communications with Mr. DeCosta difficult. I find that one to be funny. I don't like, it could be true. It could not be true. But it's just funny. Like, get this man a phone that works during these negotiations. And so, so he never gets that list. And so eventually the trade request is made official, and then the Ravens went ahead and franchised him. And according to this document, they used the non-exclusive franchise tag so that Lamar could negotiate with other teams given his request. So this is what's crazy. Only a couple teams often expressed interest to DeCosta in signing him prior to the Ravens' decision to franchise him. So a couple of teams often expressed interest before the franchise tag. Okay. But then afterwards, after the franchise tag, no team reached out directly to Mr. Jackson, close quote. I still find it incredibly dumb that the NFL wouldn't go after this MVP. You could argue it's collusion, or you could argue that they're dumb. I don't know. What I do know is that the NFL encouraged collusion, and I do know a lot of NFL owners weren't happy to see Deshaun Watson get that fully guaranteed money, and I think the NFL and NFL owners were determined to make Deshaun Watson an aberration. Whether they got together in a huddled room and said, okay, we're all going to do this together, or if they independently did it, you can't prove one way or the other. But the bottom line is how did this get resolved? Well, Eric DeCosta starts preparing for the 2023 draft under the assumption that that Lamar would no longer be playing for the Ravens. But on the eve of the draft, he gives one last effort before he starts considering drafting other quarterbacks. He gives one last effort, sends Lamar a new offer, which is the one that he accepted and we all know about. And he went on and signed it. And for 5 years, $260 million, with $135 million guaranteed at signing and a $72.5 million signing bonus. This was a surprise. It says, much to Mr. DeCosta's surprise, Mr. Jackson quickly accepted it. Deadline spur action. So at that point, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, they didn't get fully guaranteed money. I think Lamar was seeing that nobody was contacting him. So instead of letting the Ravens go out and get a brand new quarterback, he went ahead and said, okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and do this. So what is the conclusion from Christopher Droney on whether or not there was collusion with Lamar Jackson specifically? Here's what he says. He says, emails from Mr. Jackson clearly showed that he repeatedly requested a fully guaranteed contract, and the Ravens offered two 3-year fully guaranteed proposals, though they were not as long-term as Mr. Jackson would have liked. Mr. DeCosta credibly explained, so he thinks that this is credible, of why other teams may not try to sign him. Mr. DeCosta credibly explained why he did not wish to sign Mr. Jackson to a longer fully guaranteed contract for reasons that made sense, though he otherwise made an extensive effort to arrange a favorable deal for Mr. Jackson, a player he clearly respects and admires. Further, while many other teams did not express interest in Mr. Jackson after he asked to be traded, the NFL produced substantial evidence showing credible reasons for such lack of interest. Mr. DeCosta explained how Mr. Jackson's playing style was not a fit for all teams. Mr. Blank noted that his frequent injuries were one of the reasons why they did not express an interest. Many teams were not in the market for a quarterback. Some were skeptical that Mr. Jackson actually wished to leave the Ravens, and still others were deterred by the ultimate likely price of Mr. Jackson's contract and the draft choices they would have to surrender to the Ravens if they signed Jackson. Together, the circumstances show that the Ravens were not acting in accordance with a collusive agreement, or that other teams chose to make an offer to Jackson as part of a collusive agreement. The NFLPA has not demonstrated by a clear preponderance of evidence that Section 1 of the CBA was violated as to Mr. Jackson's negotiations. So there it is. I think it's pretty clear that overall the NFL was encouraging collusion on guaranteed money as it relates to Lamar. Yes, all of those points that you just made makes it reasonable, I guess, that another team wouldn't want to go out and give up draft picks and also a fully guaranteed contract, and maybe they're worried about injuries, and then they also feel like Lamar can only play a certain style, which we've seen since Todd Monken has come around, that he's capable of much more than what was being put on tape previously. So how can you come down and say for sure they colluded against Lamar, saying for sure there's enough evidence? I don't know, but anybody that feels like there was collusion against Lamar, I don't blame them either, because clearly the NFL was encouraging it. Clearly they were encouraging it. Did Christopher Droney have enough evidence to overcome all of those other reasons and say, okay, I'm going to punish teams? I don't think he did. But if anybody out there feels like Lamar and players have been colluded against, there's plenty of evidence to say that the NFL has encouraged that. And there's plenty of evidence to say, hey, maybe independently, I don't know, I guess, owners just didn't want to do it and aren't going to be as desperate as Haslam. And I'll just say this. when this was all going down, it was a year removed from when Deshaun Jackson got his contract by the time the Ravens were negotiating the second time after his 5th-year option. I'll just say this. Deshaun Watson didn't help players. The fact that he was the first one to get a long-term, fully guaranteed contract. Kirk Cousins had a shorter 3-year, fully guaranteed contract. The fact that Deshaun Watson, I mean, he did not do his fellow players any favors with the way that all turned out. So that was the bottom line of what they found. And let me see if there's any reaction in Super Chats to this whole thing. Let's see here. Let's start with Dreams, who's been a member for 4 months. I feel like that's like pretty much since the beginning we started memberships. Appreciate you, Dreams. He says, I was at that game, meaning the one with Diontae Johnson. Yes, it was freezing, that December 1st game. He does realize it gets cold in December, right? But he should have went to an indoor team or the West Coast. And let's see, Greg Scott with an orange super chat. Appreciate you, Greg. He says, Henry stiff arms people into retirement, jail, or a new uniform. Earl Thomas, Sam Hubbard, Browns linebacker, and now Fitzpatty. Flags are going to fly this season. Watch. Derrick Henry does have a way of making defenders look silly, and I sure do remember those Earl Thomas. Remember he double stiff-armed Earl Thomas? Watching from a Ravens perspective, that was brutal. And now that he is a Raven, it's not brutal. It's like satisfying. It's joyful. Nice to have him on the Ravens side. All right, Sod Blitz is back again. Appreciate you, Sod. He says, good. Cleveland only gave Watson that deal because Lamar and Burrow were on their rookie deals and they were trying to make it harder for them to get signed. Well, I don't know that that's what they were trying to do, but I definitely think that's the effect it had. That Cleveland deal to Watson for sure made things so much harder with Lamar, and it was so annoying with ESPN and, Fox Sports and whoever else making this like trying to make it more personal between Lamar and the Ravens. Like, I just think that like these circumstances with Deshaun Watson, the Ravens and Lamar were caught in the middle of all of it, but never once do I think that Eric DeCosta and company didn't want Lamar. And I also, like it said in there, like people were like dubious of like Lamar really wanting to leave Baltimore. I mean, I don't know. I think he likes Baltimore for sure, but did he want a fully guaranteed more? Probably put that above staying in Baltimore, but the market didn't materialize, and maybe it colluded that way, or maybe they just individually came to those decisions. Dreams, shout out to Hertz for helping get Lamar signed. Hertz did come in right before, and Lamar's contract was very similar to that, with I think maybe like $1 million more or something like that overall per year. Let's see. Douglas H. Brown is back with another super chat. Sarah, we appreciate your attention to detail. Thank you. I just didn't want to. It's a landmark decision. It's landmark, and there was plenty of evidence to go both ways, and I just wanted to get it right. So again, I didn't read all 61 pages, but I did do quite a bit of due diligence to try to make sure I wasn't just speaking and regurgitating other outlets' kind of talking points. I wanted to see for myself what that was all about. Okay, we're all caught up on super chats. Let's get to some quick hits here. First of all, how good is life for Kyle Hamilton right now? All pro twice on his rookie contract with the Ravens. And now he is engaged. He put up some photos on Instagram of him and his fiance, future wife. Shows him down on one knee in a great suit there. And she's in a beautiful blue dress. He's on one knee, putting that ring on her finger. Another shot of them, kind of some engagement photos there. So Kyle Hamilton, congratulations. The first time I remember being introduced to his now fiance, remember when he got drafted? I can't show the footage for copyright reasons, but remember he got drafted. He was there at the actual draft. His girlfriend at the time was there. And once he got his name called by the Ravens, they did this pretty fun handshake that they clearly had made up and maybe have been doing for a while. So they've been together since then, probably earlier, and are now engaged to be married. So here he is having a phenomenal start to his NFL career. Good for you, Kyle Hamilton. Now he's engaged. Good for you, Kyle Hamilton. And let me tell you something. That big time, massive contract that will probably set records at the safety position is indeed forthcoming. He will be able to pay for this wedding and a pretty fun, pretty great honeymoon. Buy a first house, all that kind of stuff. So that money is just a matter of when, not if. And I fully expect him, again, to set records for the most money given to a safety in NFL history. He is very deserving. Next quick hit here. Okay, remember we had Mary Kay Cabot on the show a little bit after the draft? She covers the Browns, has been covering them forever for Cleveland.com. And we asked her, with all these quarterbacks in the Cleveland Browns quarterback room, who has the lead? And she said Kenny Pickett. Like, there was no hesitation. Well, Kenny Pickett could still be the starter. We'll see. See what coaches have to say. But according to Mary Kay, it is Joe Flacco who has the support of Myles Garrett. Pretty big voice in that locker room. Obviously, he just got paid. So he's got the support of Myles Garrett and other veterans who want him to be the week 1 starter. The Browns thought Kenny Pickett could take the starting job and have an arc similar to Sam Darnold, but Flacco has proven to be the best quote-unquote pure thrower of the ball out of all the Cleveland quarterbacks so far. See, that's interesting because to me, you always want to give the young guys the first opportunity. It sounds like Joe Flacco is getting the least amount of snaps out of any quarterback there. But Mary Kay had in her report that like Joe doesn't really need it. He's obviously this veteran, a Super Bowl winner. He's played for Cleveland before. He knows the system and they know what he can do. Whereas they're still trying to discover what's going on with Sanders and their other rookie and Kenny Pickett. So they want to see what they have there. They know what they have for Joe Flacco. I still feel like it would be a little bit surprising for them to start with Joe. Seems like he's a good backup option, but we'll see. We'll see how much weight Myles Garrett and these other veterans, how much weight their voice holds. And maybe they feel like, you know what, Kenny Pickett's not our guy. Maybe one of our rookie quarterbacks is, but they're not quite ready to be on the field yet. So they can maybe have Joe start week 1. And then if they feel like one of their rookies is looking good, say by midseason, maybe they could put him in. So we will see. But we now know, because there has been mystery, who at least 3 of the 4 starting quarterbacks will be. Obviously, Lamar and Joe Burrow for the Ravens and Cincinnati, respectively. We now know it's Aaron Rodgers because he signed right before we all went on the holiday break. But still, we're still trying to figure it out in Cleveland. We'll see what Joe can do. Now, this was news also while we were gone, but I wanted to react to it. This is a tweet from around the NFL, basically one of the NFL's official channels. And the tweet says, Steelers linebacker Patrick Queen is striving to get back to, quote, his old self after a disappointing first season in Pittsburgh. His old self. I got no hate for Patrick Queen, but as I recall, his old self in Baltimore was slow developing when he came into the league. Now, yes, he kept getting better and better, but he really had a breakout season when he was playing next to Roquan Smith. Again, there was certainly improvement, but the big breakout came when Roquan Smith came on the scene. And then after that 1 year with Roquan, he goes there and he's had a disappointing season. So what's the aberration here? The aberration is the Pro Bowl year next to Roquan Smith. So when he's talking about his old self, to me, his old self was disappointing. even to him by his own standards after being a first-round draft pick. The amount of time it took for him to have a breakout year was indeed disappointing. So I don't know. To me, is he counting his Pro Bowl year next to Roquan, his old self? Because to me, the evidence says that was an aberration. That could always change. Maybe he'll have another stellar year come 2025. But it was funny to me when he talked about his old self. All right. There we go. That is all the quick hits I have. Let me get this last super chat here, and then I'll talk a little bit about my time away. Dream says, Flacco starting week 2 at the bank. And in all caps, he says, need that. I would also be here for that. I for sure would be here for that. Joe Flacco making his first return to play at M&T Bank Stadium. He's played the Ravens before, but he hasn't played at M&T Bank Stadium, correct? Pretty sure that he has not returned to the stadium. That would be cool. That would definitely be cool. And knowing the Ravens, I think they would give him a nice tribute. But then the defense would try to give him a different kind of tribute, for sure, as he would be in the Ravens' way at that point to starting out fast. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the holiday break. You guys probably are more on top of what Bobby did all break, because I basically put my phone away. I was camping for the first 4 days of our break. And then during the 4th of July week, I was at a lake. Service wasn't good, this and that. Every once in a while, I'd get on a Wi-Fi and then I could catch up on Bobby's stories. So I look forward to hearing his recap tomorrow. And if you've been following him on Instagram, then you probably know more than me. For me, I had a phenomenal break. So those first 3 or 4 days, I was in charge of taking a group of girls from our church camping. It was a girls camp. That was a blast. Tomorrow, I hope I have time. I want to bring in some video. One of the things we did while we were camping was rappelling down a rock cliff. And that rock beat what's going on here. Oh, I'm back. Hopefully you guys can. Tomorrow, I feel like I keep coming in and out. And I'm freezing. Something is breaking down, but we're at the end of the show anyway. So how about this? I will give my recap of my vacation same time as Bobby tomorrow. But I will just say this. I got some scars from rappelling. And now I just have a new life goal that I want to be better at it. But I'll bring in video, show you how I fought with this rock. And I eventually overcame and got to the bottom, but it definitely was fun. So because I'm having connectivity issues, we've got through all the content. There's still other content we haven't gotten to from over. I wanted to talk about Lamar being on with Kevin Hart. There's a Rashad Bateman interview that went on while we were gone, plus whatever other news that pops up between now and tomorrow. And we definitely will welcome back Bobby. So until then, I'll just say goodbye to everybody before the screen goes out again. Appreciate you guys. I hope that we can all get back into a routine together. And Tila, I also forgot to do, before I leave, let me give a shout out. Right now, Tila, we have 1,571 concurrents. Appreciate you guys rejoining us here in the dead of the off season in July before training camp starts. So pretty healthy live audience. Appreciate you guys. And I want to give a shout out to our patrons, Ross Trollmans and Joseph Hester. Thank you to Bobby, who jumped in here for me to get this before he went to this birthday celebration for his aunt. So he set me up well, because you guys know that I can sometimes forget about that. And so, appreciate them. Appreciate everybody. Park Heights Prophet, Sod Blitz, Douglas, all you guys. Appreciate your guys' super chats and the new members. We will see you here tomorrow at noon with Mr. Bobby Trossett to talk all things Ravens. This is the end of today's Solus Solo Sarah Day. Talk to you then.